Well, hello there everybody, and thank you so much for joining me on this first day of term, as it is over here in the UK, for this sort of training for Ready to Play Book 2. And before I forget, we have organised a special deal with Alfred UK. I'm afraid it is only in the UK that this is valid, but we have a special deal running till the end of September. Hopefully you can see that. The code that you'll need to use on the Alfred UK site, Ready to Play 2022, and it's valid till the 30th of September. So that will be the same day really that the video will also be running to. So you're 25% off, so very generous, for Ready to Play books. Will be going from until the 30th September, and the code is Ready to Play RTP 2022. Okay, I'll try and remember to come back to that again, so that everybody else gets to see it who comes in at the end. And I'm just going to double check I'm recording. Yes, I am indeed. So thank you so much for joining me. And in this training session, as I said, it's going to be quite free flowing. But I'm going to share with you, take you through the concepts and things in book 2, and that which is making progress. And then I'm going to really dig into, I think, the pentachords, the major and the minor, the do and the la pentachord, and look at the relationship between the two. So I'm really going to focus in on that. I'm not going to be taking you through every song in this training. If you want that, you can go over to the YouTube channel, where you'll find me presenting every single song. And of course, the accompaniments and things are all over on SoundCloud. Also on YouTube is the training that I did for book 2, probably must be getting on for 18 months ago or so, or 20 months ago. And there you'll get the full training for every single song over 4 separate training events, and that's all there and available over on our YouTube channel, YouTube Ready to Play. I'll show it to you later. But let's start with a quick overview. We're looking at the overview, we're going to look at the major and minor pentachord, and then I'm going to give you a little peek into Ready to Play book 3, which is making progress. And as I said earlier to somebody, this is not yet, at the time of recording this is not yet published, but it has just gone to the printer, or is about to go to the printer. So I'm just going to now come and share my screen with you so that we get, one moment, let me just find the right screen. Here we go, that's the one. All right, so I'm hoping you can all see that. And just let somebody else in. Are you all with that? And I'm going to just share my screen here. There we go. Good, good, good. So, Ready to Play, book 2, moving up. And what this book really focuses on is taking the student on. Again, there is a lovely progression of concepts in it. And the concepts, the rhythmic concepts that it covers include rhythm. Of course it includes rhythm, but rhythmically it includes syncopation, dotted crotchets and quaver patterns, or dotted quarter and eighth notes in the States. And it has more on meter, so it develops a little bit more about meter than you get in book 1. I'm just going to take this moment to say that, of course, I've had to choose 12 songs, actually I think it's 11 songs and 1 piece, to go in the books. That is 12 from hundreds of songs. So we're not short of material. And if you think, oh, I've got a bit bored with this, then there are other songs out there that you can go and look for. And if you remind me later, I'll tell you some of the places you can go for that. So that's your progression for rhythm in book 2. For the pitch work in book 2, we go from, just one moment, Amy's going to have to wait. We go from do, re, mi, sol, la, in other words, the pentatonic scale, which we've sort of built towards in book 1. In book 2, we extend that now and put the whole thing together. But the majority of the book actually is focusing on the pentachord, the major pentachord, do, re, mi, fa, sol, and the minor pentachord, la, ti, do, re, mi. The major pentachord, the minor pentachord, and we have one piece that does the major hex chord, which is do, re, mi, sorry, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, and that's lavender's blue, dilly, dilly. So those are the pitch concepts. Other concepts that we cover, we do a bit of form, we do rondo, for example. The relative stave, and that's one of the things I'm going to look at today. We also introduce clefs and landmark notes, and I have attempted in the book to sort of pin down the relationship between the relative stave and then fixed pitch, which has always been a bit of a difficult area, I would say. We also go into sharps and flats, of course, and intervals, which are fourths, fifths and sixths. So generally those are the concepts that get introduced here in book 2. And we are now going to go on and have a look at Once a Duck Fell in a Well. And I am going to come off my slides for a moment. Let me just come off here, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. Stop share, let somebody in. And I'm sure most of you know Once a Duck Fell in a Well. So let's stand up and join me, because we're going to do stamp, stamp, tap, tap, clap, clap, stamp, stamp, tap. And you know, it seems quite easy, but for your student who might be doing this, it's actually quite a challenge to keep that going. You will need to model with them, yeah? Lots of modelling, scaffolding in other words. And off we go. Once a duck fell in a well, splish, splash, splosh he sounded, wished he had not fallen in, very nearly drowned. Oh, you're all very good. You've all been practicing, I think. And of course, it's completely up to you. If you want to make that harder, please do. You know, if you want to get the student to come up with a different body percussion, then that's half the fun of it, that they actually take control of that learning. So with that Once a Duck, that's our introduction, of course, to that pentatonic scale. Oh, I'll do it first, off I go. Do, re, mi, fa, so, so, so. Do, re, mi, fa, so, so. Do, re, mi, fa, so, so, so. So, fa, mi, re, do, do. Okay, let's just all try it together, shall we? Give the hand signs a go. If you haven't tried them out yet, they are another tool that you can use. And it's great because you can sing without singing, if you see what I mean. Yeah, just have a listen for a second. Off I go. Okay? And what they do, what all of this does is get you to think in sound, and it gets your students to think in sound. I'll come back to that because that's quite a theme going through today, this idea of thinking in sound. So, Once a Duck, let's all do it together in solfa. I'm going to change the pitch. Off we go. Do, re, mi, fa, so, so, so. Do, re, mi, fa, so, so. Do, re, mi, fa, so, so, so. So, fa, mi, re, do, do. Super, super. And then maybe you can do things like combine a couple of different skills. Can they do the clapping? You know, can they do the rhythm pattern? And do, re, mi, fa, so, so, so. So you're always looking at, as a teacher, at ways that you can just lift the challenge slightly all the time. If they can do something, what could we do next to make it just a little bit harder? Because that will keep the brain switched on and awareness and focus. It's when we haven't got enough to engage our brain, it will go floating off like a dandelion seed. So we want to keep them engaged, and we do that by always just very, very tiny steps, lifting that skill level all the time. Okay, so do all have a seat. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and going on and just taking you through a little bit about yes, okay, that's the one. Many moving parts. Here we go. So in Once a Duck, in Once a Duck, this is what you've got in Ready to Play Book 2. You've got that game written out, you've got the accompaniment underneath. Notice I'm not using the accompaniment though to actually introduce the song. It's important that the singing actually happens first. Of course, if you're inexperienced at using this sort of thing, you might actually need to play the song first in order to get it in your head. That's absolutely fine if you absolutely need to do it, because that's how we all learn. And then take the piano away and sing. As much as possible, get the students singing first and have as much fun and be as silly as you can. And if you've got your Spotty Duck somewhere, come on Spotty Duck, where are you? He's around. Here she is. Oh. This is the role model for the actual duck in the book. Yeah, so if you've got a Spotty Duck, then do get them out and play some games with them. So what we've got here is we've got the Pentachord introduced as one of the Sally says, and I do love hearing from you all about you do use the Sally says, and the students do seem to enjoy Sally says, you know, the fact that I've put myself in the book, that I am talking to them, so it's lovely to hear stories about that. And when we get to this page, we go into Once a Duck on the relative rhythm solfa. At the top of the page we have rhythm solfa. Now rhythm solfa, again, you're going to hear me say this again, it's really important to help students think in sound, because if you look, rhythm solfa has completely stripped out any sort of musical reference that you might normally do from the stave. Of course, we started work on rhythm solfa back in book 1, and to be honest, if you're only doing little bits of this approach, every now and again, their ability to sing and read from rhythm solfa will not be very strong. It does require very, very consistent work, okay, to get them really secure at it. But even some work is better than no work at all. Even some work is better than doing everything at the piano and going from the stave to the piano. Okay, so I would encourage you to work at it yourself and to get your students to work at it. So what does this mean when you look at this rhythm solfa? Well, first of all, you have to clap the rhythm, don't you? You have to work out the rhythm patterns. So let's try that together. Off we go. T, 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 ta, T, 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 ta, ta, T, 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 ta, T, 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 ta, ta. Now, you might notice if you're starting to look at that for patterns that there are definite rhythm patterns and pitch patterns going on here. So what I quite often like to do here is to alternate. I will do the first phrase and they will do the second phrase. Let's try that. I'll clap the first phrase, you clap the second phrase, I'll clap the third phrase, you clap the fourth phrase. Okay, my turn first. I've got to keep in time here. Off I go. T, T, T. Lovely. Now somebody is unmuted at the moment. Could you all just check yourselves to make sure that you are on mute, if you wouldn't mind, please. And so I could then immediately say, what did you notice about the patterns that you clapped? Did you clap the same pattern, or were they two different patterns? And of course they clap the same and I clap the same. So that is a really easy way of getting them to recognise the structure that's beginning to emerge here. Having got the rhythm pattern, then it's time to actually do some of the solfa. Now, I would always warm the students up before I do this, and here I've got my lovely assistant. I think most of you have met Lulu. She's very excited to be out. There we go. And yes, okay, and singing with you all again. And I would do a little bit of warm up using Lulu, because it's so much easier to have Lulu than me do it, and it's so much more exciting actually, and so much more fun. And as I've said before, the students will sing for Lulu when they don't always sing for me. So, Lulu first, you're going to copy Lulu, off you go. Do, re, mi, fa, so. Your turn. Do, re, mi, fa, so. Good work. Okay, this time, Lulu, I'm going to sing and you're going to copy me. And this time, you're all going to sing with Lulu. Okay? My turn first. Off I go. So, fa, mi, re, do. Do with Lulu. So, fa, mi, re, do. I might do a little bit more practice like that, but you'll notice I'm just taking the patterns that are in the song and rehearsing them basically. I want to set the students up for success with rhythm solfa. Having done that, we would then sing it all the way through. Again, I would need to scaffold this. In other words, I need to help them. Probably a full scaffold would be I would sing the whole song with them, okay? And Lulu would join as well. That might be in the first week. In the second week you do it, you would actually try and drop out. You'd only give them half a scaffold. You know, you might get them started and you might just help them out on the last phrase because they might just struggle a bit more, or they might not. So you've got to judge as the teacher where they're going to need the help and where they don't. And you'll find over time, the more times you use this, the more times you'll understand where the problems are going to rise, yeah? Where the problems are going to rise. So something to look out for, something to write in your book to help you remember the next time you teach it. So let's sing it all the way through. Because we can, yes, okay. Off we go. Do, re, mi, fa, so. Do, re, mi, fa, so. Do, re, mi, fa, so. So, fa, mi, re, do. Yay, thank you so much, lovely. Now you'll see underneath there, underneath the rhythm solfa, that we've then got an explanation of whole steps, half steps. It's up to you what you want to call this, whether you want to call this whole steps and half steps, or whether indeed this is going to be tones and semitones. If you're in the UK, then you might prefer to do that, and that's absolutely fine if that's the case. Let me just check. Yeah, here's the very last page actually of Once a Duck. I'm going to come back to whole steps and half steps in a moment. But before I leave this page, I just want to have a look at the rhythm solfa that you've got on the right hand side. So these are 4 songs that they've already learnt if they've been through book 1, and you can go through exactly that procedure that we've just gone through with Once a Duck to help them to work out what it is. Again, depending on how much they're doing this will depend on how easy or how hard they do it. Quite a few of you have already mentioned, actually 2 of the songs that you can see there are some of the favourite songs that were being commented on. Right, I'm just going to come out of there for a second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen again. I'm going to let somebody in. All right. Lovely. Okay, so before we go on, I just want to really emphasise two particular points. I am talking about the major pentachord and the minor pentachord. I think at this point in time, it is absolutely essential that the students have an understanding and a practical application at the piano of whole steps and half steps. They are kind of, if you like, the skeleton, the bones of our functional harmonic system that we use in Western art music. If you understand the whole steps and the half steps, then you can work out any scale, whether it's major or minor of any ilk, or even for that matter, pentatonic and things like that. The whole steps and the half steps is absolutely crucial to do that. And you will need to return again and again and again to make sure that they do actually have that understanding. You can do that obviously at the piano as well, on the piano, understanding how they do that. And of course you can also use floor staves for those of you that are familiar with the manumats that go on the floor. Let me just see if I can put this one down here. And this is a very easy way, I'm just going to move my chair out of the way, and fun way of getting the students to identify away from the keyboard the whole steps and the half steps. And I think somehow, because you've got something much bigger and they can't make a sound, then it feels really tangible and really applicable. You know, so you could go, well, no, I'm not going to get complicated about that at the moment, but I just think these are a really good way of doing it. Going up the half steps like this, and knowing that a whole step, don't know whether you can see very much or not, but I'm basically going C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. I'm not going to say the note names with them, but getting them to that, really important. The other central thing that I think is important here is for them to understand and start to be familiar with tonic and dominant, home and away. So again, in our music, in our Western art music, tonic and dominant rule the day, basically. You know, they are so fundamental to our key system. So the students need to start to know that. And at the end of every song these days, I will sing this, you know, I will sing do, re, mi, fa, so, so, so. Do is the tonic and so is the dominant. Or if I've sung this in the key of C major, let me just, I am in C. C is the tonic and then what's the dominant? I'll get them to work out what the dominant note is. And that really helps them when it comes to working out the key of a piece when it gets a bit more complicated. Really does, the tonic and the dominant. And you'll find when we go through the book 3, I refer, there is a whole section about tonic and dominant, and subdominant actually as well. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to my screen share a moment. Yes, I'm definitely going to do that. Here we go again. Yes, we're all there. So there we go, there's our rhythm solfa that I've just gone through. It helps us to think in sound. It uses the major pentachord, which has a home note which is do, and an away note which is so, and tonic and dominant, or if you like, 1 and 5, because of course all these names refer to actually the same thing, okay? So the relative stave, let's look at that idea now, move on to the relative stave. So on the relative stave, the notes are not attached to particular fixed pitch letter names like C and D and E. Fixed pitch letter names only happen when the correct symbol, which is a clef, is placed at the start. And I know this does kids' brains in. I know it does our brains in sometimes, yeah? But you can only fix a pitch when you have a clef that fixes it at the start. If there is no clef, it's not fixed at all. And again, it's a really important part of the journey of helping to develop that inner ear. So for this one, I'm just going to show, again back to a manumat here. I've got a big stave here, a floor stave, and I will write notes on there using the notes that I've got, and we will sing. And it might only be 2 notes at a time, so, mi, or I'll bring over my board from over here. I'm hoping you can all see this. It's like the big one. There we go. You all see that? So here is my relative stave, if you like. I've got a stave, it's a mini stave. Mi, re, do. Yeah, but it's a it's one of the small steps that you can take towards getting them reading from the relative stave with confidence and understanding of what's happening. Okay, put that back over there. There isn't, as you might gather, you know, a set way, I think, of necessarily doing this. You can't go straight onto the relative stave with every single child. If you go back into book 2 and have a look at Tom Catt's Sally Cathcart, you'll see that that is where the relative stave is actually introduced. So once again, reading from the relative stave will require lots and lots of scaffolding from you as the teacher. You know, here's one of those mystery songs that we looked at in the Once a Duck. And with this one, look how I've put the hand signs down the side. Now, if you're in the Facebook group, and if you're not, then I will tell you more about that at the end. If you're in the Facebook group, you can download these hand signs. They are there in the files section, as are lots and lots of other things. So the hand signs are there just as a little help, that's all, to help them remember the patterns of the notes. Without them, for some children, they get considerable cognitive overload. And adults as well. Anybody who's new to this will find that they have cognitive overload. In other words, their brain is just trying to deal with too many things. So what have we got here? Okay, we've once again, we've got a rhythm pattern. Let's clap the rhythm pattern. The rhythm always comes first. Off we go. Ti, 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 ta. Ti, ti, ta. Ti, ti, ta. Ti, 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 ta. Oh, lovely. Okay. Lulu's going to come back again, and she's going to do a little bit of warming up with you. So, once again, this time I'm going to lead and you are going to sing with Lulu. Are you ready, Lulu? Yeah, okay, here we go. Mi, re, do. Your turn. Mi, re, do. Do, do, do. Do, do, do. Do, do, re, re, mi. Do, do, re, re, mi. Mi, re, do, re, mi. Mi, re, do, re, mi. Lovely, lovely. Now this time I'm not going to sing the singing names. I'd like you to sing them back with Lulu, okay? You're going to use the singing names. I'm not. I'm just going to sing the pitches like this. Off I go. Do, do, do. Mi, re, do. Do, 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 do. Do, do, re, re, mi. Do, 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 do. Mi, re, do, re, mi. And did you notice that because the starting pitch was changing each time, I was actually giving the hand sign for that, just to give a little bit of a help. So that would be a little bit of warm-up, and then we might look at this, depending on the student's level of practice, of expertise at this. I might well get them to identify all the me's in the piece and write that in. I might get them to actually write the singing names underneath, or if they're a bit more advanced, then they would sight sing it basically. But probably for most students, if they haven't been doing this really, really regularly, almost like a musicianship class, they would probably need to write in the singing names underneath. Okay, so that is all about reading from the relative stave. It's another important feature of the book. So now we're going to go on to the minor pentachord. Do, do, do. And of course the song that introduces this. Goblins are around tonight, everywhere you go. They will give you such a fright, everywhere you go. Watch out for the goblins, they will trick you so. Goblins are around tonight, everywhere you go. And you want to sing this with as much character as you possibly can. If I've been changing the words of this recently, I have to say, well, last term, and instead of goblins, I've often done pirates. Children also like it when they do teachers. Teachers are around tonight. Or anything you like if you don't want to be a goblin, okay? Anything you like is absolutely acceptable. And you know, you can get, I love it when I do pirates and they go stamping around going, yaha! Good pirates are around tonight, everywhere you go. Sound more like a farmer than pirates at the moment, but you get the idea. Okay, so this particular song introduces the minor pentachord, and the minor pentachord is La, Ti, Do, Re, Mi. And the minor pentachord comes out of the major pentachord. I'm going to come back to that in a moment or two, but we'll just have a look through the rest of the song, because then it goes on with whole steps and half steps. I missed that out, that's what I should have done. I'll come back to it. And you've got the March of the Goblins at the very end. Okay, so let me just stop my share one more time. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to track back on myself because I should have done the interval song or the step song for the major pentachord. Do, re, whole step, re, mi, whole step, and you'll find that is at the bottom of page 15 in book 2. At the bottom of page 15, we did scoot through it and I somehow missed to pick that up. Now this again is a really important thing, and I have got here my floor spots, and they're actually set out so that they make a pentachord, okay? And I'm doing it like this, sort of lengthways, just to get it in the room really. You can have it, I would probably do it actually from left to right. And we would sing like this. Off I go, do, re, whole step, re, mi, whole step, mi, fa, half step, fa, so, whole step. Yeah, and I would do it first, and then I'd get the student to do it, and I would do it with them so that they know where they are. I haven't quite done these quite right, but look at that's a bit better, my mi, fa, really squashed together there, mi and fa. Another thing you can do here is to have a ball. If you've both got a ball, it's great. And you can bounce the ball, for example, on the whole steps and throw the ball on the half steps. So, off I go, do, re, whole step, re, mi, whole step, mi, fa, half step, fa, so, whole step, like that. And that's a really lovely game, and they love doing that. Or of course you can actually bounce it to each other, and then the person who's got it on the mi, fa, the half step, then throws it in the air. Lots of ways you can have fun with that to consolidate, because I'm going to come back to this idea that they need to understand this half step and whole step idea. It's particularly important when we're using solfa, and this is one of the real strengths of this, because mi to fa is always a half step. Doesn't matter what note it appears on, it always has to be a half step, okay? It doesn't move from that half step. And of course, when we get to the minor pentachord, it's slightly different, because what we have on the minor pentachord is we have la, I'm going to start with the same pitch, but La, ti, whole step, ti, do, ha ha, ti, do, half step, do, re, whole step, re, mi, whole step. And there we go with the minor pentachord. All of a sudden we've got the half step down between ti, do. But notice how do is still do, but we're doing the minor, so we start instead on the la. La, ti, do, re, mi, re, do, ti, la. My feet are too big. Goblins are around tonight. Do, do, ti, ti, la. It's one of the things I love about this song is that it has that do, do, ti, ti, la, which immediately gives that minor sense to what they're doing. Okay, so I'll just put that back down and I'm going to go one more time, I think, onto my screen. And la, 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 la. Here we go. How are we doing? All good. Yeah. So let's see if we can just go into this a little bit more. Major pentachord. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. And in that, do is the tonic and so is the dominant. Do, so, do. 1, 5, 1. La, ti, do, re, mi. La, ti, do, re, mi. La is the tonic and mi is the dominant. La, mi, la. This is why I say knowing and putting in the tonic and the dominant is a really important feature of this, because it's the understanding that do is the tonic in the major pentachord or a major scale, of course, and so is the dominant. But in the minor, la becomes the tonic and mi becomes the dominant. And actually naming that every single time you do a song or a piece in a major or a minor key. Really, really important. And then you can even add in the letter name. So here, because it's the key of goblins, you know, I'm going to have to go to an F, just. So now we've got do, re, mi, fa, sol, tonic and dominant, F, G, A, B, flat, C. F is the tonic and C is the dominant. Notice I sing. I sing most of it, yeah? And they will sing it back to me without, even the ones who don't want to sing, they will just sing that back to me. La, ti, do, re, mi. La is the tonic and mi is the dominant. D, E, F, G, A. D is the tonic and A is the dominant. Okay. Hope you can begin to see how these things fit together and how having an understanding of half steps and whole steps is crucial, as is in including the tonic and the dominant understanding with that as well. And again, it's something you just need to model tons and tons and tons. Okay, so if you've got any questions or queries, then do put them in the chat, which I can't see at the moment, but I'll come back to that in a little while, because I just wanted to take you through book 3. This is sort of an editing copy. It will be slightly bigger than this, but normal sort of music side, but it's called Making Progress. Just like the other books, it has got 12 songs or pieces in it, and it is presented in pretty much the same way as the other books are indeed, and I'll show you one of the pieces in it in a while. So the rhythm concepts that it introduces, before I do that, who's it suitable for? I would say students who have covered book 2. I would say students who are probably 9 plus. I would say students who, if they're using the UK exam system, will have done grade 1. When I say grade 1, let's put it a different way. They will be grade 1 level. They don't need to have done grade 1 in order to do this. But I find that many of the concepts in the book actually are required for the next level of pieces that they're going to be learning. So compound duple meter, 6/8 time in other words. I've included upbeats. Now I'm sure they'll have been doing upbeats well before this, but I needed to put it in somewhere, and this is where I've put it in. And also we introduced semiquavers or 16th notes. There's a fab little chant that we do it with chicka chicka cha cha, chicka chicka cha cha, chicka chicka cha 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 cha. And you have to go chicka 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 cha cha, chicka chicka cha cha, chicka chicka cha 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 cha, chicka chicka cha cha. Anyhow, it's just a chant, but it's lots and lots of fun and really energetic. Lovely way of introducing semiquavers, I think. So those are the rhythm. Now you might notice that actually book 1 and book 2, once we get past crotchets and quavers, once we get past quarter notes and 6th and 8th notes, nothing much else happens really rhythmically. But in this book, book 3, yes, this is the right time to move them on rhythmically. It gets more complex. Pitch. Okay, so with pitch we cover the major pentachord. We just go over that again. And then we do not only the major hexachord, but now the minor hexachord comes in. I've also covered major scales, natural minor scales, and harmonic minor scales in this particular book. Again, I expect they will have been playing scales. I would hope they've been playing scales of some sort or another. However, playing a scale is one thing, understanding a scale and its structure and its construction is another concept completely. So again, it's a question of separating out the physical skill required to play a scale. Yeah, they should already have that underway. Now let's look at why scales work. And of course, hopefully you can see that understanding whole steps and half steps is pretty fundamental doing that. Also in book 3, we go into harmony. We go into harmony because I think this is such an important thing for children at this stage to start to understand. Harmony as a pianist is our fundamental bedrock. We are a melody instrument, obviously. We play melodies, but it's not the same as a flute or a violin or even a cello. We play harmony. We play horizontal music as well as vertical music. And as pianists, understanding harmony, I think, is crucial. So we have tonic, dominant, subdominant, and bass lines we look at as well. Other concepts that we cover. We look at motifs, musical ideas. Analysis plays a very big role in this particular book. We look at the oral tradition with an old folk song, The Keys of Canterbury. Oh, madam, I will give to you the keys of Canterbury. An important part of our British culture is our folk song tradition, and this is a British folk song. Key signatures we cover here. We look at canons, because canons are a really valuable tool, and intervals wise we go into the octave. So we do cram it in a little bit in book 3, I have to say. As far as the contents, we have 10 songs. 10 songs folk songs, known songs, you'll see what I mean in a moment. We have new songs, and as much as possible, they're all really engaging. We have one piano duet. If you remember, book 2 finishes with a duet. So here's another one. This is a romancer by Diabelli. Minor, uses the minor pentachord, highly expressive, and it's all about romance and expressivity. So I'm trying to link here with this book to the expressive nature of music and what makes it expressive. Guess what? It's all to do with half steps and whole steps. And the book finishes with a piano piece, and I'm delighted to say that I've been given permission by Chi Hua Tan to include the swing, which many of you will already be familiar with. It's for the level that the student is at, it is hopefully an easy piece for them to learn. And maybe they've already learnt it, but maybe they're going to look at it in a different way when I introduce all the different activities that we go through. So that's what the book is made up out of. And here is just one example of a piece, and this is Frère Jacques. And you know, I said known songs. So here's a song, and I've said, you know, you'll all know this. It's written out there in rhythm solfa, so that's a bit more challenging. You know, they'll be able to sing it. It's also got some adding the actions. You know, you're going to stamp on all the do's and click on all the me's and tap your head on all the so's, and the low so's you're going to bend your knees and tap your head at the same time. Okay. I use it to introduce the concept of canon, and I've written it out as a 2-part canon, and it's a lot of fun, I would say, to get so good at it that you can sing and play with yourself, or even play both hands in canon with yourself. Quite challenging, actually, with such a simple song, but lots of fun in trying to do it. Okay, you might all go away and see if you can do it yourself. You might be saying, yes, but can you do, Sally? Yes, I can. Shall I show you? Let me just come around here a moment. Unpracticed. Okay, I'm going to try it. I'll sing it first. I'll go do, re, mi, do, re, mi, do, mi, fa, sol, mi, fa, sol, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, do, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, do, sol, do, sol, do, sol, do. And if I was one of my students and I'd said, so how was that? What would you give yourself? I'd say 8 out of 10. I had a little blip in the middle where I started to think about it too much, and then I had to do it again. So lots of fun to try that. Okay, and then, so on this page you can see what I've called discovery file, and this is the analysis part. As a musician, which both you are and your students are, it's important to understand the music. It's not enough just to play it. It's not good enough. I can play all the notes. Yeah, fine. You will only get so far with your musicality, with your expressiveness. You need to know what makes up the piece. And you'll find that I have done this consistently throughout this book. We have a discovery file. It's introduced in the previous song. In this one, I've given them all the hints. I'm not going to go through it now, what it consists of, because I'll do that in the full training when we come to book 3. But it's got things like the time signature, it's got the structure, it's got rhythmic elements, melodic elements, final notes. Those of you that had some good eye training will recognise this as being such an important feature of what we do, that you look at a song and you analyse it. You have to get inside the song, inside the notes, really. And then on the Sally Says page, of course, Mahler did in his first symphony, the slow movement, is the Frère Jacques, but in the minor key. Now, I love connecting the music that my students make with the music out there. I think it's so important that we look at the bigger picture. So I've used this to connect Mahler with Frere Jacques, with major pentachord, with minor pentachord. And I've said, here's the version, here's his version written below in rhythm solfa. Work out some of the detail by answering yes or no to these questions. So you probably, as the teacher, will need to lead the way quite heavily, yeah, clearly on this with the minor version. I would also just point out that there is a little rhythm at the bottom on the third phrase, which they won't have yet encountered. This is why I say you have to lead the way. So this one goes la ti do ti la, la ti do ti la, do re mi, do re mi fa mi re do la, mi fa mi re do la, la mi la, la mi la. Oh, it's so expressive when you sing it in the minor like that. And of course it's the hexachord, not the pentachord, as I was saying. So on the next page, I now make this connection with the major and the minor hexachord. Notice there's more on whole steps and half steps there. And then on the next page, I've included a score. And these are the first few bars of the score from Mahler's First Symphony, where they play in Canon. So I've tried to bring in as much as I can into the book, linking things together. So you've got Canon, that's already been introduced. You've got minor, that's already been introduced. And now we've got here a symphonic score, but it's quite limited because if you look, there's only 5 instruments playing. But they're all in the bass clef, so that's quite interesting as well. I just think that students need to have their eyes opened to what music is like that isn't piano music. So this helps them to actually start to see things, and you can point things out, and you could even go, I would hope, and listen to it. And then at the very bottom, we finish off with a very simple arrangement of the minor version of Frere Jacques for them to play, which picks up on the la, mi, la, tonic, dominant, tonic, of course, there at the end. Okay, so I think that is probably about as far as we need to go for today, and I'm just going to stop my share one more time, double check there's nothing else. Nope, didn't think there was. Somebody's waiting to come in. There we are. Okay, so I am thrilled about this book. It's taken a while to get together one way or another, but I think it's going to I think it's going to be lots of fun to implement it and see how it gets used by you all out there. It has got a progression. There is definitely a progression there. However, I think you might find that you use selected songs in selected ways at selected times. So you might even just pull out something, you know, scales, for example, major scales, to consolidate or to strengthen a student's understanding of a particular of that concept at any particular time. So hopefully. Okay, so that's the end of that. I'm just going to come, all right, to all right, lots of questions here. Thank you, lovely, thank you. When's it going to be released? End of the month. We hope by the end of the month, by the end of September, it should be available. We will certainly keep you informed as to that. Okay, I've just had a couple of questions about how you can use book 2 with older beginners. And I think with older beginners, it's always about finding, I don't know, it'd be good to know what age we're looking at, really. What age are we thinking here when we say older?
Right. Still primary, Sally.
Yeah.
But you know, they're probably KS2, like year 3.
Okay. I think So Angie, because I know it's you, are you thinking about the choice of songs, or are you thinking about what
I think
area?
I think what sparked this question, Sally, was you know, there was a question earlier on the Facebook group asking what do others do if you have a transfer or if you had a beginner who's not quite, probably we wouldn't want to start with jelly on a plate.
No, no. Okay, I'm with you.
And could we go to book two basically from start
Yeah.
and still cover off some basic pulse and pitch concepts?
Okay, thank you, Angie. Well, it's interesting you should say this because I've actually got my one and only live pupil up here in Yorkshire, and he's had a couple of trial things, but he's going to be, I think, year 5, and I'm going to try this very thing. I'm going to be working on book 2 with him because I think that is the right repertoire choice for him. But I might just supplement it with some of the book 1 stuff that I feel is appropriate. I'm going to take some of the songs at the beginning of book 2. Tomcat, Sally Cats, great one. Yes, you can do pulse. Yes, you can do pitch with them. And of course, at that point, by the time they get to year 5, hopefully the voice is there and it will be more secure. Doesn't mean to say they'll know how to find their voice still at that particular point. But once you help them to find a voice, then that should, I think, pop into place quite easily, as opposed to your 6-7-year-old who's still just not, the vocal muscles just not as developed with that particular age as they are when they get to 8 and 9. It's amazing how quickly things change at that age. So Tomcat, Sally Cats, absolutely I could do that. Engine number 9, another great one for doing in that respect. I think it's up to you to take some of the ideas from book 1 and kind of pull out the songs that you think might be suitable. I think that Rain is Falling Down, that nearly always works for me with an older or a younger student. Another one that might work is The Bells and the Steeple. Again, it's a question of engaging them in the right way for their age. So with the older ones, I could use some of the songs from book 1, but I would probably change the activities. Bells in the Steeple, okay, can we do it? Bells in the steeple, how loudly they ring. Yeah, and you just put in some body percussion and whoa, there we go. They're engaged. As soon as you make something a little bit challenging, a little bit wacky, a little bit fun, doesn't really matter what the song is, to be honest. And if you can do it with enough confidence. But body percussion, I would say, is the way in with the older starter. Hopefully that's answered a little bit of a question there. Okay, Rachel's asking, would I start with So Mi or So Mi Do? It would partly depend on their singing voice, It would partly depend on what I heard coming back to me. So if I, with a 9 or a 10-year-old, did something like Tomcats, alley cats, tortoiseshell and tabby cats, and I can hear that the pitch really is happening there, yeah, then I probably wouldn't go right back to So and Mi. I might do Mi, Re, Do as a starting point, yeah, that's probably what I would do because I can immediately link that onto the piano. I wouldn't necessarily do, but children surprise you sometimes how much they like songs like Old Mr. Woodpecker, how much they like songs like Apple Tree. I can have 12-year-olds going, oh yeah, can we do Apple Tree please? So you can't say that there's one thing really for a particular child. If you've got quite a streetwise child, then you've got to get the body percussion going, decide what their voice is like. If their voice is not particularly secure at the age of 9 or 10, then possibly go for a simpler song, pitch-wise, but just jazz it up with the body percussion. So I'm thinking of a song, and I think it's in the National Youth Choir of Scotland song books, and it goes, categories, which one? Animals, lions, tigers, yeah, and it's just a so me, that's it, that's all it does. But you have to think quite hard, and you can keep your body percussion going as well. Then all of a sudden, lots of things to think about. You could also use it, you know, in the categories. Okay, so what musical categories could you come out with? You could do note names, or rhythm names, crotchet, then they have to do minim, semi-brief. They have to come out with these things, or letter names, or, you know, it's actually quite a fun way of Italian terms, allegro. I think they would need to be quite advanced actually to think that quickly to get through things like that. But, you know, there are songs out there that you can use that might really engage them and suit them. This is what I said at the very beginning, wasn't it? That I've had to choose 12 for each book, so it gives us about 36 for the entire thing. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of them out there. Absolutely, there are so many songs that you can use out there. If you want to go and look online, then places to go are, there is something called the Kodai Hub, which is a great, it's free, and it was set up, I think, partly by the Kodai Institute in Hungary and the National Youth Choir of Scotland. So you will find hundreds of songs in there. There are lots of books. I mean, the Voices Foundation has a book. Let me just go and get them for you. Yeah, I'll just find some books. Oh, look, I've got 3 potential books here that you could use. The Voices Foundation has the Inside Music books here, and again they have lots and lots of songs at the end, as well as for classroom music, you know, how to teach it, ideas for how to teach it. So that's one thing, that's Inside Music, and this one is 5 to 7, but there's another one with different repertoire in it, which is ages 7 to 9, which is for the older ones. There's also Cyrilla's and David Vinden's Jolly Music books, which are fantastic. This is much more a step-by-step approach for teachers in the classroom, but again, there is very good repertoire in here, and it is now a whole series of books. Yeah, a whole series of books, so you can find the one that's applicable to you. There's also the National Youth Choir of Scotland books, Singing, Games and Rhymes. This one is for early years, but again there's one for middle years, and there's one from 9 to 99 as well these days, which is a lot of fun. So it's really up to you to choose which one you want, and there are others. There's a whole set of Kodai books by Houlihan and Tacker, which is an American, they are American academics, and who've published a whole series of books about Kodai in the classroom. Okay. Yeah, can I, thank you Anastasia. Do you know, John Kanaka, it was one of my favourite songs. I think that goes across the board for everybody. However, you have to probably put it to one side in terms of using it, because it's found to have some racial links to it. So unfortunately, certainly in the classroom, it just cannot be used any longer. I think there's a debate. I think National Youth Choir of Scotland, Lucinda, etc. might have changed some of the words, and there's a debate whether you can change the words and still use the song. We do have to be increasingly careful about the songs and checking out the heritage of the songs. So, you know, there's again, one of my favourite songs I used to use was 5 Little Monkeys. Just can't go there these days. Can't go there. Jump Jim Joe. Can't use it any longer. So do double check, please, the heritage of the song and whether it can be used or not. Okay, so I've got another question or so. Yeah. Spend longer on each chapter or concept for younger students. Would I spend longer on each chapter, each song for younger students? Probably. I'd spend longer sort of exploring different ideas and doing it away from doing it on the floor, doing it on the piano, playing different games, and really it's a question of deciding, does the student actually have the understanding? Are they able to show that they understand through their singing? Are they, you know, if I go do 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 do, can they sing that? So me, so me. Can they nearly sing it back? Are they miles away? You know, that will help you to make the judgment as to whether to move it forward or not. Okay, so it's got to be very much on an individual, one-by-one basis. You know, you get a lot of children are so different, aren't they? Some 5-year-olds will really, they might be a young 5, and things might still be kind of not quite connected up in terms of language or in terms of just movement itself. In which case they're probably going to need a lot of repetition, a lot of working with. Whereas some 5-year-olds have had, you know, quite a lot of input in one way or another. Their physical skills, their coordination is probably better. Their reading will be good, therefore you'll often find that their physical coordination and their reading skills, by that I'm talking literacy skills, will often go hand in hand, not pair and pair, hand in hand. So those who are not so physically coordinated might be still learning the basics of reading and stuff like that. It's a really interesting area actually, but you just have to decide on every student. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point, Angie. Thank you for saying that. It is a spiral learning curriculum. And obviously if you keep doing the same thing in the same way each week, then boredom begins to set in. So if they're still stuck, then this is where you need to go away and find some other songs that you could actually fit in to bolster the learning and introduce it in a different way in a new situation, for example. Okay, so I think, were there any other questions that I missed out down here? I'm just going to go back to Janet's pentachord as rather than pentascale. Okay, so a chord is a string of notes, yeah, and it's how I've always been taught to refer to these collections of notes. We can have a bichord, a trichord, a tetrachord, a pentachord, a hexachord, etc., etc. Okay, so it's to do with the collections of notes. Whereas a pentascale is specifically to do with a particular pattern of notes as applied to the keys. As far as I'm concerned, a pentascale is a term that has come from the States, I think. Yeah. The pentachord is very much from the oral approach to things, whereas I would say the pentascale is more to do with the physical skill of playing, and you learn kind of pentascale patterns, don't you, that go into your fingers. Yeah, so you do a major pentascale which has the whole step, the half step, and the whole step. Yeah, so your fingers, no matter what the pentascale is, you're always going to play it with that pattern on the piano. And the minor pentascale, which is going to be the whole step, then the half step, then the whole step, then the whole step. So that's a physical pattern, whereas the pentachord are to do with the oral patterns in the notes. Does that sound like a good explanation? I thought that was sounding quite valid. All right, so I'm just going to stop my recording. Lovely. I'm just going to say thank you all so much for joining me today. I'd just like to remind you that we have a discount courtesy of Alfred UK. If you go to the Alfred UK website and add the code RTP2022, you will get 25% off, 25% discount until the 30th of September. 25% discount until the 30th of September. Thank you very much for the reminder as well. Ready to Play, the Facebook group, you will find, I think here, let me just get it here and come back over here, and I'll say this with everybody. Oh, how do I do this? Everyone in meeting, here we go. So do come and join us. We're actually on the cusp. Who's going to be the 500th member of the Ready to Play Facebook group? We are on 499. So if you're not in the group, go over there. Make sure you're the 500th person to join us. There's also the Ready to Play YouTube channel. You can just search for that and you'll find all of book 1 and book 2 on there, as well as various recordings and trainings going on. And then you can also find us over on SoundCloud. Thank you all again so much for joining me, and I shall look forward to seeing you all maybe tomorrow, where I'm going to be going through an introduction to book 1. So this is very much at the starting point for book 1. All right, take care. Happy playing. Bye for now. Just going to end the recording.